I, Squale Cien, Na Cieya, we respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, where we live, learn, and play. Adoption of the agenda. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item 3, financial statements. Mr. Sankos, please.
Thank you. We're joined today by Darren Freer from the firm of Collins Barrow in Victoria, and he's here to present the 2017-28 financial statements to the board. The auditors have done their thorough review. Before he does that, I would like to first extend my appreciation to all those involved in preparing these statements, in particular Karen, who pretty much did it all herself this summer, along with our finance staff and payroll staff. But I really wasn't involved as much as we were working on a lot of other issues over the summer. So thank you, Karen, and thank you, Gina, who worked on the notes to the statements as well, and to the auditors and their team who were here for a couple of weeks over the summer as well to ensure that they were ready for the board to consider adoption today. These statements are, the purpose of financial statements is to provide information to the reader about the school district's financial position and performance. They compare the June 30th 2018 balances to the prior year actual and the annual budget, so you can see the change from year to year and the change from what's been planned for the district. The original budget that is being used was adopted in May of 2017, so a lot happened between May of 2017 and June 30th of 2018, and what Darren's here to talk to you about some of those variances. Also want to note that the audit covers off the statements, and the statements are this part of the financial statements, but there's also all the schedules and notes that are the background of all those numbers that are included. Some highlights to be thinking about for this year's statements are that this was another year of enrollment growth, and it's reflected in the revenues and expenditures. It's also the first year of the implementation of the Memorandum of Agreement on class size and composition, and there's some significant financial implications to that agreement. 1.3 million in the capital fund to renovate classroom spaces and move and refurbish portables. 8.4 million for teachers and support staff and other services such as custodial and supplies to implement the agreement. So that's new from last year. And the highlight, I think, before I pass it to Darren, I don't want to say too much, I don't want to cover off things he's going to cover off, but that the unrestricted surplus that has been reported on these statements is $1.6 million, so that's the money that hasn't been allocated to any purpose. Certainly we've had demands on that since the end of June for portable acquisition, but it's close to 2% of budget, which is right within the board's contingency policy of maintaining a 1 to 3% contingency surplus. So I think it landed nicely, and I'll pass it to Darren.
Okay, thanks, Jason. First of all, if everyone could just turn to our auditor's report. And Gina and I chatted briefly before, and I think she's going to pull that up. A couple more pages long. There it is right there. And what the auditor's report says, it's addressed to the board, and you will note that the report states that the district has prepared their financial statements in accordance with the accounting requirements of Section 23.1 of the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act of the Province of British Columbia. That the financial statements are the responsibility of the board's management, and that our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. Scrolling down a little bit more, you'll see that our opinion states that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with the accounting requirements of Section 23.1 of the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act. This act that requires that government transfers from the province for the acquisition of capital assets be booked into revenue on the same basis as the related amortization expense. And this is consistent with the treatment in prior years. And as we reported in prior years, public sector accounting standards does not permit the presentation of funds on the statements. They are consolidated. However, the schedules at the back of the financial statements show the various funds. Those are the schedules that Jason referred to a few minutes ago. As well, as Jason noted, The budget column in the financial statements is the original budget, not the amended budget. So what I'd like to do next is walk through a couple of the statements within the package and illustrate the financial statement highlights for the year. So if we could first turn to Schedule 2.
Could you give us a page number by any chance?
Yeah, it is. It's page 30 of the statements, but
I'll get that page.
Page 33. Page
33 in your package.
Uh, 34 in my package. That's it.
Okay, everybody there? Okay, good. So this schedule is the schedule of operating operations and details the operations of the district for the year. You will note the operating surplus for the year, partway down in the middle column, is $616,481. When added to the opening surplus of $3.852 million, there is a total surplus at the end of the year of $4.469 million. And of this, the district has restricted or spoken for $2.963 million. That's the fourth to last number on that statement in the coming year. And as well, the district has a $117,000 unfunded accrued employed future benefit liability. And you'll note it's been paid down $50,000 again this past year. The end result is an unrestricted surplus of $1.622 million. And there you'll see that's the third to last number on that schedule.
Excuse me just a moment for Mr. Sanchez.
I think I'd just like to make a comment to the trustees reading the statements, that you'll notice that there's notes next to some of the items. So you'll see there, as Darren was just talking about, the internally restricted surplus of $2.9 million. Over to the left, it says that's note 21. So any details that you're looking to find about what is in those numbers, or what is in the unfunded liability future benefit number of $117,000, note 9, you can find by referencing the notes to the financial statement. So I just, as you're going through this, if you're wanting to get more detail, that's where you'll find it.
Thank you. Karen, did you have something? No.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mr. Hutchins. Trustee
How
Hutchins.
is this different from the annual report? Like, why is this on July 12th saying we have $1 million? I think we discussed that in the summer surplus, and this is 1.6.
Mr. Sanchez.
That's budget,
Yeah.
and that was planning. This is actual, what actually happened. So we would have been doing projections at the time of the budget preparation, which was done earlier in the year, but
Oh, so
we
this
had,
is, okay, this is a something, okay.
yeah.
This is not stuff here.
Right.
So we're looking at the actual results for the 12 months ended June 30th. So again, as we have seen over the last several years, the district has again achieved financial results extremely close to their budget. And in fact, the $1.6 million unrestricted surplus is within the board's policy of having a contingency of 1 to 3% of operating expenditures. The 1.6 million coming in at approximately 2.1%. Okay. On the revenue side of the equation, up above, on that same schedule, you'll see that total actual revenue was $79.57 million on a budget of $76.75 million, and is up from the $77 million spent in the prior year. This 3.2% increase in revenue versus last year is a result of a number of factors, some going up, some going down. For example, there was increased enrollment, an increase in students in special ed and in Aboriginal ed, a $1.1 million increase in the local education agreement funding, which was then offset by the loss of the $50 per student learning grant, and a slight decrease in international student revenue due to less students, offset by a tuition fee increase. So a lot of pieces moving up and down, accounting for that change in revenue this year. All in all, the results are as expected and are well explained. On the expense side of things, we'd like to turn to Schedule 2B, which is a couple pages along in your package. This is the schedule of operating expense by object. Is everybody there? What I like about this schedule is it groups all the various functions, for example, instruction, maintenance, transportation, together, and groups all the similar expenses within those functions together. Here we are able to look at the operating expenses of the district in a little more detail. So first off, you'll see teacher salaries. The 31.9 million that was spent this year is above the amount spent in the prior year, but under budget. This is consistent with the aforementioned enrollment increase, an increase in the number of teachers, the wage increase during the year, but is offset by the always changing staff mix during the year. The next line item is principals and vice principals. Here you'll see an increase over both 2017 levels and budget. This is consistent with the regional salary model increases and the increased FTE due to the enrollment increase.
Can I just have a comment?
Karen?
Is it okay? I just want to say back on the teachers, it does look a little bit funny that the budget was a bit higher than the actual. One of the other things we saw was we hired teachers down here that were newly out of university, and then, but we didn't know that when we were budgeting a year previous, right? So we budgeted up here, we hired a lot of more junior teachers, so our average teacher salary actually came down, even though there was a wage increase provided to teachers in the grid change. Anyway, it does look a little bit funny, but after a lot of analysis, that's what we figured out was that.
Yeah, and I refer to that as sort of the staff mix. Basically, you've got more younger teachers or less experienced teachers, perhaps.
And we had savings on our average teacher salary costs, which also reduced our revenue because one of the funding lines is average teachers. This is an adjustment for average teacher salary, how you're different from the rest of the province. So we thought, woohoo, and then we saw the funding come in and went, oh. Because it got dropped correspondingly. So it does look a little bit odd, but it's to be expected when you're hiring 50 new staff members to implement the classroom enhancement fund.
Next, we have educational assistants. That's the next row. And here you will note an increase over 2017 and over budget, consistent with the increased enrollment and the increased number of special needs students and the wage increase received in 2018. Support staff salaries is next. Here you'll see it's below budget, but over 2017 results. There was a wage increase during the year, which was then offset by some vacant positions. The other professionals category you'll see is above budget and over 2017 actuals. Changes this year include hiring a communications officer at the beginning of the fiscal year and vacation payouts for unused holiday time. And the last item I'd like to point out with respect to salaries is the substitutes row. Here you'll see that in 2018 the results are more than 2017 results and the budget, which reflects increased sick leave district-wide. Next up is employee benefits. Benefits this year are over the prior year but under budget, and it is up overall due to more staff and some premium rate increases, but below budget due to the pension rate savings and the 50% MSP premium savings, which began January 1st.
Hang on just a moment there, Trustee Hutchins.
Go back to the substitutes. It's 10% of it. Is this substitutes for teachers only, or is it for other professional support staff or aides?
Mr. Sankers?
It's all release time. It doesn't just represent sick leave either. It's release time for any, an in-service might be in there as well, or the substitute release time. But it's teachers and it's sick leave and vacation time for QP and steelworkers. Coverage for those individuals.
Okay.
The next category at the bottom of this schedule is services and supplies. And overall, this area is greater than budget in the prior year. You'll see that overall 9.14 million was spent on a budget of 7.67. At play here are four main fluctuations. First one, you'll see that services is up due to rollovers from the prior year and increased costs again this year of running the dual credit program. And remember, the dual credit program has increased costs, but correspondingly there is an increase in revenue to offset that. Secondly, professional development travel is up due to the international student costs, as well as incurs an offsetting revenue amount up in the revenues area. 3, more was spent in supplies due to the prior year's rollover. And 4, with more students, there were more classrooms and thus more supplies. So overall, you'll see total operating expenses this year of $78.88 million on a budget of $78.11 million.
That was close. Mr. Sandquist.
Remember
Nicely done.
that the budget is set May of the previous year, and as Darren was mentioning about rollovers, they're not in the original budget, they come in the amended budget, so that $2.9 million that's been restricted for the next year will be spent in the next year of the surplus that you saw earlier. Will go into the amended budget, it doesn't show up in the annual, so often the supply allocation, for instance, if some money's been restricted for the next year, it shows up as being spent the next year but wasn't part of that original budget, if that makes sense.
So that's the operating side of the district. But something that Jason alluded to in his opening was the Classroom Enhancement Fund. So I'd just like to quickly take you there to Schedule 3A, which is a few pages along. Sorry, I don't have my page numbers don't
41.
correlate with yours. 41?
37 in the financial statements, 41 in the agenda.
You said 37 in the financial statements?
Yeah. It's sideways.
I just want to point out, or point out a couple of columns that are new this year in the Classroom Enhancement Fund. It's super small print and I think it's sideways.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, Gina.
All right, Gina.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
There they are. So they're right in the center here. And you'll see, what I want to point out is new this year, this fund includes approximately $8.3 million of funding, of Ministry of Education funding.
It's the next page. Yep, there you are.
Right there. Right in the center, you'll see there's two columns called Classroom Enhancement Fund. And if you sum the two, you'll see there's a 1.1 million and 7.2 million. The sum of that is the 8.3 million Ministry of Education funding, the Classroom Enhancement Fund. And these two columns lay out how those monies were spent. The largest component of that was 5.4 million in teacher salaries and 437,000 in educational assistance. So in closing, as I've stated the last couple of years, this is again a year where your actual results very, very closely paralleled your budget, resulting in a $1.6 million unrestricted surplus on a budget of $76.7 million. So very tight. And on behalf of the audit team, I'd like to thank the district, the management team, Jason, Karen, and your crew. Thanks very much.
And we'd like all that to you and your staff as well.
Yeah.
It's obviously a good year for us, and we're glad that you found that to be true. Mr. Sandquist, any concluding remarks?
No, just I had my opening remarks. I felt quite comfortable at the end of the year to see the balances as they were coming in. They seemed to be close to what we were projecting, and our projection is a moving target. And as we got closer to the end of the year, it started to look more and more around the range of where it ended up landing. So We will continue to bring the board information as we have it, and it's nice to have the 2017-2018 year concluded, and we're on to amending the budget for 18-19 now. There is a recommendation here which comes from the audit committee, which the audit committee met prior to this meeting, so I'll let the chair make that recommendation.
As Secretary just said, the audit committee met prior to this meeting, and we recommend that the Board of Education School District 79 adopt the 2017-18 financial statement.
Thank you. Moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee DeGroot. Any comments? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And we do need to thank our staff, even more so, for great accounting. So, thank you very much. We're moving to adjournment. Moved by trustee DeGroot, seconded by trustee Schmidt. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Yep. Next week's minutes are closed.
But I'm really glad to do it because
A few things to sign for Karen before we will need to sign the financial statements, which